Hey everybody, welcome to the Evening Reader. My name is Priscilla, and oh God, I cannot get, every time I move somewhere the light changes. I have been moving all around the apartment trying to find a spot where I can film and it just doesn't, like, there's not like a glare of my glasses or it doesn't look totally murky, so this is what we got right now. I have like shears I can close, but if I do that, it looks kind of dark. So yeah. Anyway, I thought that I would do a catch-up video today and talk a little bit about my reading so far this month. How's your month going? How are you doing out there with your reading? Are you doing any events? Are you, or maybe I should say, are you still doing any events? If you're like me, you feel maybe like, yeah, I have been, it's been quite the month. I am still, as you can tell, probably a little frazzled. It's just been like that really for all of May. I don't think that we fully recovered from yet from our trip to the States. And it just feels like work. This is always very busy, a couple of months at work. And we haven't gotten our bearings. And like next weekend, we're going camping. And while I'm excited to do that and get out for a couple of days and go hiking and whatnot, I also can't wait to kind of be on the other side of it and maybe get into a routine, which I shouldn't even say out loud. I shouldn't even say that out loud, should I? But yeah, I hope that I'm really not that superstitious, but I just figure, yeah, well, anyway. So yes, I'm looking forward maybe to having a stretch of time in June and July where things are a little more even keeled, but life will do what life is going to do. Anyway, so for May, oh yeah, I was, I kind of got, I aligned with three events. What is Mental Health May, which is being hosted by Kim at Middle of the Book March and Marilyn Maya Mendoza. And then also Springathon, which has several hosts. And I will put them in the description box below. And I am sorry, I am doing this away from my desk and I don't have any notes. And also MontgomerMay, which also has several hosts. Deea of Novel Idea is one of them. And Voyage of a Time Wanderer, I believe, also is one of them. And I'm sorry, I will also put their information down below in the box. I think Springathon is technically over. I think it was really only the first 2 weeks of May. So I missed that boat bad. But that's what I'm here to talk about. So I apologize to not having all of the names on my tongue. That's terrible. And I should have brought a notebook over, but that's just how it's been. So it's indicative. It is indicative of my reading month. Let's just say that. Okay. So, for MontgomerMay, I was reading Emily of the New Moon, and I am still reading it, and I think I may be able to finish it. And so there's that. There's something I'll say about that, but I'm gonna save some sort of Uber event talk, I guess, for the end of the video. Okay. And then for Springathon, I was reading Waterlog by Roger Deacon, and I was also hoping to read The Genius of Birds, but you can see not so far into the Deacon. Yeah. I am enjoying this. It's interesting. I'm gonna read it, but I don't know that I'm gonna finish it in May. Let's just put it that way. So, but I guess I've missed the boat already on Springathon, so what can you do? Okay. Now, for Mental Health May, which is the one that I really wanted to talk about, before I talk about other things that I've read this month. So uh, I started off with The Body Keeps the Score, which I have in a physical copy. I don't have it with me. So I'll just put the up there. Um, I started to read that, and it's the clinical tone of it. Just I could not get into it. I just was not in the mood to read something quite so clinical. And I bought that book because I have a character who has PTSD in something I'm writing, and I wanted to do some research and kind of get an understanding of PTSD. And I had heard good things about the book. So I decided to set that aside, and I bought a different book, and that book is called, hang on, it's a shiny, of course I had to find something shiny and new. It's called The Anatomy of Anxiety, Understanding and Overcoming the Body's Fear Response by Ellen Vora, MD. Anyway, and so I started that book, and because I deal with anxiety, and so I thought it might be interesting to read and see what it said. And I'm not a big self-help reader. I'll start with that. I'll start with that. I tend to, I mean, it's not that there's nothing wrong with self-help. I'm just not a big self-help reader. I don't tend to find myself necessarily helped by that genre. But I know that lots of other people have found tremendous help from reading self-help books. And so this is not at all meant to be a blanket statement against self-help books. But I read about 20% of that book, and I ended up abandoning it. And there were several reasons, and I'll tell you why. I thought the premise was really interesting. Essentially, the idea is that there are definitely aspects of anxiety that we have control over, and that just requires some changes in habits if it's possible for you to try and make those changes. And Vora is a medical doctor. She is a psychiatrist, but she also is somebody who has studied outside the bounds of Western medicine. I guess that's a good way to say it. And looked at, other ways of managing stress and anxiety and those kinds of things. And so she sort of fused together what she's learned, and she's sort of, it's not memoirish, but there's definitely some anecdotal evidence that she has based on her own experience, for example, of getting off of medication for anxiety and the steps that she took and how it worked for her, and how it's also then worked for her patients, how she has seen it worked for her patients. She goes into that. She does not say that there's anything necessarily wrong with medication, but I would say that her tone is somewhat anti-medication. Is if you can get off the medication, you probably should. That personally is something I would maybe agree with, but I've never taken medication, so I can't say anything about that aspect of it. She, high level, has taken an approach where she divides anxiety into what she calls, and this is unfortunate terminology, I think, true anxiety and false anxiety. And false anxiety is essentially that body's fear response, that things that trigger our fear response that are also things we have control over. So for example, not getting enough sleep, scrolling social media, drinking too much caffeine, or eating what she calls a non-clean diet, or not getting any exercise. and all of these things are right. I mean, I believe that all of this is probably, I mean, no, I believe it's true. I should say, I think it's probably true. I do believe that there's a lot of anxiety that can be relieved if you can get better sleep, if you can get exercise. I don't know so much about the diet part, but maybe not, maybe sugar. Some people are very affected by sugar or salt. Um, Not drinking alcohol or drinking excessively, and cutting back maybe on caffeine if you're sensitive to it. Um, but I would say this, in that section, or the part of it that I read, I have to be fair. I was finding myself a little frustrated because most of the things that she talks about are things that you could get from a magazine article. You could get this anywhere on the internet. If you were reading an article about stress, anxiety, about sleep, about what have you. I mean, yoga bloggers cover some of this stuff. I mean, it just was not like, it was not earth shattering, or in some ways all that interesting. And then in some ways it was a little, I mean, it really is leveled at somebody who is middle class or better. I hate to say, um, she does try, and I mean, I felt like I could almost see, like, maybe an editor giving her a suggestion, like, okay, you might want to think about, because, like, for example, in talking about eating, she goes on for pages and pages about cleaning up your diet and cooking and the benefits of fresh fruits and vegetables, and you know getting healthy meals, and all this stuff. And she goes on for pages, and then like, she devotes maybe a couple of sentences or a paragraph at most to saying, oh, of course, but you may be not be able to cook because you're too busy, or you may live in a food desert, or maybe you just can't, but that's okay, don't get stressed out about that. But what you should do is just don't worry about it then, and just don't get stressed about it. And it just kind of it's a little jarring. It's like, well, you can't spend, and then it's the same with sleep. I mean, it's to spend page after page after page saying all of these things that people should do, and then maybe recognizing that lots of people may not be able to do these things. Somebody with two jobs and children maybe cannot, to say get blackout shades and keep your phone out of the room. It's just, it's a little, anyway. So that kind of started to rub me the wrong way. She just says some odd things, like, for example, at one point she says that people who don't have kids don't know what it means to be truly exhausted. And I was thinking, oh, well, I don't have kids, but I know that there have been times I have been truly exhausted. And then I'm certain that there are people without children who are, caregivers for spouses or siblings or elderly parents, or who maybe have major financial problems or anything, who have known true exhaustion. I just thought that was kind of a weird thing, because she was kind of like, high five, am I right? It's like, oh, well, okay. So there was that kind of bothered me. But the other thing, and I wanted to say this in general, one thing that bothers me about books like this, and is that it puts so much onus on the person to fix things on their own, when a lot of the things that cause this kind of anxiety are societal problems or cultural problems. For example, toxic productivity culture. I think a lot of people feel pressured to work so much. Like, I know when I moved here, and especially if I tell people that I work for an American company, they just like, yeah, oh, Americans are crazy. Americans are just, they work all the time and they're crazy and they're stressed out. And it's, it's not untrue. Um, I mean, I've heard somebody who I knew was drowning and having a huge amount of trouble at work described as having a great work ethic because they were sending email at 11 o'clock at night and working on weekends. And that person actually then ended up getting let go because they were drowning. That was a sign of somebody drowning. That was not a sign of somebody just, oh, I love to work. I just love it. I think I'll send an email at 11 o'clock. Um, I think, uh, you know, for example, another thing would be, making sure people have adequate health care, making sure people have adequate access to food. Um, areas where there are people who live in areas where there's no grocery stores. Having the right social safety nets in place. We put so much, we very much in the West and especially in America are all about individual you and the individual and that can do. And sometimes that itself becomes kind of toxic, you could probably fix your anxiety, when you have all these other things and nobody says anything because everybody's so busy, trying to make green smoothies and buy blackout curtains and not doom scroll social media. They're too busy to fight against the man. I don't know. Yeah, I'm ranting at this point, but it does bother me. And I think for Mental Health May, that is something that's important to recognize and to mention because a lot of the problems, I think a lot of anxiety problems, a lot of depression problems actually stem from the fact that there just aren't enough, there's not enough support and that things are badly broken in a lot of areas. Anyway, and commentary. So now I'm reading Your Brain on Art, which I think is actually probably going to also set me off if I'm telling the truth. But I'm buddy reading this with a friend of mine in Atlanta that we read a book a month together. And so I think this is probably going to make me angry again because it's going to talk about how wonderful art is, how good it is for your mental health and your well-being. And, meanwhile, we have all these articles about how stressed out the youth of today are as they rip arts programs out of education, as they focus everything on STEM, as they take out literature, as they take out art classes, as they take out music classes, as they take out theater classes. Yeah. No, we'll see how that goes. Okay, I'll put that down. All right, so what have I been reading? I have done some mood reading. I did a little bit of mood reading. I read Anita Brookner's first novel, A Start in Life. And this was really delightful. I really enjoyed this. I think I read it in a day or day and a half. And yeah, the first line of it is Dr. Weiss at 40 knew that her life had been ruined by literature. And so this is the story of Ruth Weiss, who is a bookish, serious young woman who lives with her highly interesting and dramatic parents. And she really, really takes to heart what she learns from reading French literature in general and Balzac in particular, and fashioning herself after these heroines of Balzac. And she ends up moving to Paris to complete a book, to do further research and complete a book. And she has a little taste of life away from her family. But then she ultimately ends up going back home, which you know from the start of the book, so that's not a spoiler. But this was very, very witty and just very lovely. Yeah, so I've read that. And then I read Sisterland by Curtis Sittenfeld, since I'm obviously on some kind of Curtis Sittenfeld kick. uh, I decided to go ahead and read this because I was thinking about Rodham and romantic comedy, and Sonya, an enthusiastic reader, had really highly suggested this one to me, and I'm glad that she did. It's got the lowest rating of her books on Goodreads, but I really enjoyed it. I thought that it was um, it's it's slow moving. It's not highly dramatic. It is about two sisters. They are twins, Daisy and Violet Schramm, and they they're born, and when they're small children, they both find that they have what they call the senses. So essentially, a sort of ESP. And as they grow up, they begin to grow apart. In high school, Daisy starts to sort of she has an incident with a classmate, and she decides that she doesn't really want to have these senses, and she doesn't want anybody to know that she has them, where Violet sort of leans into hers and, you know, sort of feels like it's okay. And they go off to college and they start to lead very different lives. And then it comes to there are two timelines. There's the past and the present. And in the present, Violet has predicted that a violent earthquake will hit St. Louis, Missouri, like something beyond the scale of, you know, like a nine, you know, a really catastrophic event. And she's garnering a lot of national news attention for this. And Kate, who is now Kate Tucker, she's going by her middle name, which is Kathleen, but she's calling herself Kate. So she's now Kate Tucker, her married name, is sort of standing back in the background and watching this happen. And there's more involved with that, and then with her marriage, and with some friends of Kate and her husband, and sort of the effects of Violet's predictions on their lives, and but particularly on Kate's life, because it's told in the first person from Kate's point of view. And how we learn more about how she sort of tried to eradicate her senses, and how she feels about Violet's senses, and then also how she feels about this prediction and what it does to her world. So these are very very short and cursory reviews, but really enjoyed both of those. Yeah. So events. I have not been a very good event participant this month, and I feel that I should especially sort of apologize to Kim and Maya for Mental Health May, because it's an important event, and I'll have the information down below. And if you're participating, I hope that you've had better luck than me. um, but yeah, I just overcommitted at the beginning of the month, and I'm struggling a bit. Next month, I am planning to do June on the Range. I'm only going to read one book for that, and it's a book I had planned to read this year, regardless of anything, and so I will do it. And that is going to read Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry, and I'm going to buddy read that with Randy at the Literate Texan. And that'll be it for me for June in terms of event reads. And then I'm really not sure about July and August. I think there's Jane in June. I think Angelia mentioned that is an event. I may try to read Persuasion and then maybe reread Pride and Prejudice, and also then Curtis Sittenfeld's Eligible for that. But I'll just figure that out when I get to July and see how things are. Yeah. because I don't want to be somebody who commits to an event at the beginning of the month and then does not finish. That's not a good feeling. And I am such a mood reader, and I am not a TBR person, and I did okay in March and April, but oh geez, I just have not done very well this month. So, and then what else? Yeah, what's coming up? I will have a couple of book haul videos. I'll have a weird book haul video. Kind of an unusual thing that happened. And then I bought a bunch of books when we got back from the States because I didn't get to buy anything while we were there. So when I get all of those, I will do a haul video. And then, oh, let's see. Oh, I am also, right now, I am reading Memoirs of Hadrian by Marguerite, oh gosh, her last name. I'm looking at my Kindle, sorry. Marguerite Yourcenar with Classics and Company, and that is hosted by and Novella and Micah Covens, and then also with hosts, additional hosts this time around, Remembered Reads and Steve Donahue. So I have started Memoirs of Hadrian, and I am absolutely blown away. I'm about 20% in. I just bought it yesterday. I'm already 20% in, so I am loving it. Loving it. So I just thought I would maybe not join events. I joined a read along. So welcome to my world, because that's how I do things. Yeah, what else? So, oh, the other thing I wanted to mention, and I've only got a few minutes before my little putt, because this will just cut me off. This just turns itself off. But I am thinking about maybe instituting a little book ban for myself. A book ban, a book buying ban, a book buying ban, because I have a lot of books. I have a lot of books, and I need to read them and stop buying books. I don't know if I can really do it, or if I can work out a system. But I really need to focus on what I have here. And BookTube does make it tough, because if you want to join in and then you got to buy a book to join, like I just bought Memoirs of Hadrian yesterday on Kindle, you know, it's so tempting, and you want to be a joiner. But yeah, maybe this will be my last join in until I can get my act together. Because I already own Lonesome Dove. I own 2 copies of that, so I should be all set there. Okay. So tell me maybe what events you're looking forward to for the summer. There are a lot. Let me know what you're reading, how your month is going, and if you enjoyed hanging out with me and you haven't subscribed, please subscribe and hit the like button. Maybe hit the bell, or do what you got to do. And if not, that's okay too, because YouTube, BookTube's a big place, and there's a lot out there to enjoy. So I hope that you're having a good weekend wherever you are, and I look forward to talking to you next time. Take care. Bye.